Kevin Smith, who, if I remember the last time we were talking about him on the programme, seemed to be annoying critics by not wanting to show his films to critics.
We annoyed him first. So the way it worked out was this. Kevin Smith made a movie called Cop Out, which was rubbish. And it was sort of mid-priced, like $35 million, with Bruce Willis, sort of studio movie, completely lazy, really boring, not very good work. And in America, critics said, really lazy, boring, not very good work. Kevin Smith threw a hissy fit, said, what do they know? I let them come in and see my movie for free, and then they say rubbish things about it. That's it. I'm done with critics. From now on, if I'm going to give away free tickets to anybody, it's going to be from fans on the internet. You know what, critics? If you want to say things about my movie, then you pay. So I thought, okay, fine. So I went and paid to see Cop Out down at the cinema down in White City, and I paid whatever it was, £8.50, and I saw it was utter rubbish. And then I came on the radio and I said, I've seen the new Kevin Smith movie and it's utter rubbish, and I have paid for it as well. So it's fine.
You're entitled to say that.
Yeah, and I said I will make a deal as well, which was I will pay to see all your movies from now on if you agree never to use any of my anything that I should ever say about your movie to promote it, because filmmakers always complain about critics said these things that damaged our movies, but they don't talk about the time that whenever anybody says anything even vaguely good about a film, they want to use it to promote the movie.
You write about this in your best-selling book.
I do, in my best-selling book. Thank you very much. And so this was my contention was, look, fine, I won't take the press screenings, and then on the other hand, is that a deal? No. And the reason it's not a deal is because you're saying this now because everyone doesn't like this movie because this movie was rubbish. But you know what? For all the other movies, when people said nice things about them, they ended up on the poster. And I know because I wrote a very nice review of Clerks when it first came out for Q magazine, and that ended up being used on trade press ads, and that's how it works. Funny thing happened. I saw the film, which we're coming to, and
eventually.
Yeah, no, we are. And almost the next day, I had a phone call from somebody in one of the publicity departments saying, could we get a quote from you for the film because we know that you quite liked it? Which, I wasn't able to answer that inquiry in time, because by the time I got the message, the deadline had passed. But I thought it was ironic that the very first thing that happened after I had indicated that I liked the movie was I was asked whether I would, whether they could use a quote from the thing that I'd done on Kermode Uncut blog. Okay, so Anyway, so
I'm ever so confused.
Okay, what I'm saying
Where
is,
are we now? Has the film started?
Yes, the film has started, but it started in the preamble, which is all the stuff about throwing the toys out of the cot.
This is the pre-title sequence, isn't it?
Yes, I don't like critics. The minute that you make something that isn't rubbish anymore and critics start liking it, it's funny how immediately the critics are back in favour. The fact of the matter is, the reason I got asked whether or not they could use a quote was because I had done a blog which said, you know what, it's the best thing Kevin Smith has done in ages. And it is. It's a Red State is a sort of stripped down, independent looking movie that caused a little bit of a ruckus because he initially put the distribution rights up for auction and then bought them himself. Everyone thought it was a bit of a publicity stunt, but he was saying that what he was trying to do was work outside the mainstream area of distribution. And the story is there's a bunch of horny young blokes who decide that what they're going to do is that they need to hook up, I think is the way it's used, and they answer an internet ad to hook up in the neighbouring town, which is famous for the fact that it's got a very, very sort of fundamentalist church in it, which nobody seems to like. They go over to this neighbouring town where they meet Melissa Leo, who says to her, yes, I'll show you boys a good time, have a couple of beers first. They drink a couple of beers. Next thing they know, they wake up in cages in a fundamentalist church where everything is going extremely bad. The next thing you know, the FBI turn up, it's a siege, it's Waco all over again. Here's a clip.
Well, they're a pretty tight-knit group, approximately 25 members, all related by blood or marriage. Makes it impossible to get any coverts inside. Last April, someone at 5 Points reported an IED set up on church property. No injuries sustained and minimal damage done to a tree. But in an interview with the local media, Cooper claimed that if the bomb had gone off in a synagogue, black church, or homo-friendly Unitarian coven, there'd have been an uproar. No suspects, no arrests. Local law enforcement chalked it up to towny kids having fun at the church's expense. But it spooked the Coopers into tearing down all the barns on their property, turning them into barricade fences.
So it starts out looking like a kind of sub-American Pie frat boy comedy about, guys getting into cars to go and, do the thing. Then it's... Hook up. Then it turns into what looks like is going to be a sort of torture porn movie in a way which you think, oh, blimey, we're going to go here. Then it turns into a siege movie, and then it moves into something that looks like it's going to go the way of the Rapture. So it's it's many different and in a way, the less you know about it, the better. So I'm not going to sort of explain the plot any more than that. Things to say about it are, firstly, very good performance by Michael Parks as the preacher. There is one scene very near the beginning when he gives this sermon. It must go on for 5-10 minutes long. It must be like page after page of dialogue, and it's a really brilliantly delivered, sort of sermon full of hatred and full of, prejudice and full of this kind of, wrath of God and a really, clearly very well researched and very well written and very, very well played. The film also, it has a couple of very good performances. Other than that, obviously Melissa Leo is very good, with John Goodman in there briefly. What the film does is it has a central idea, which is you have these kind of right-wing fundamentalists who believe in the hellfire and brimstone stuff and have decided to wax wrath and then some. And the movie is about the way in which those expectations are then turned on their head, because then what happens is that the FBI turn up, it becomes a siege, who's in power, who isn't in power, then it turns into a sort of full-blown kind of action movie. And here's the best thing about it is it's all over the place, right? It changes gear and it changes step and it tries to bolt together these different things in a way which is very raggedy and very sort of slapdash. And some people have said that it's a series of sequences with nothing to hold them together. But unlike Cop Out, which was just a bland surface sheen all the way from beginning to end, it looks like unfilmed to Kevin Smith. You're a fan of Dogma, right?
Yeah, I like that very much.
This has great similarities to Dogma in that, firstly, it's obviously made by somebody who has spent a degree of time thinking about religion and thinking about politics, somebody who has something to say, and it will say it with a very foul and potty mouth, and sometimes in a very, very funny way, and sometimes in a way that makes you flinch. Somebody who is willing to take really absurd ideas. The central idea in Dogma that the two angels come down to stop somebody going through the ark that will bring about the end of the world that happens to be at an abortion clinic. The whole thing, remember all those ideas that are raised up in Dogma and thrown up into the air in a way that clearly is going to get everybody into trouble and yet somehow just about gets away with it, but is raggedy around the edges. Well, those raggedy edges are the things that make Red State interesting. The times that Red State doesn't work, the times that Red State doesn't quite hang together, are the things that I almost like most about it, because it looks like a singular film. It looks like a film that reminds you what it was that you first liked about Kevin Smith. That in fact he is funny and foul-mouthed and difficult and belligerent and playing by his own rules. And it also makes me think that I was all the more right, as was everybody else, to call Cop Out for the absolute piece of trash that it was, because the worst thing about Cop Out was it was soulless, heartless, undistinguished, just corporate guff of the highest order. And I'm sorry, but my feeling about it is that the reason Kevin Smith has made a film as singular as Red State is in response to Cop Out. It wasn't. He didn't need us to tell him that Cop Out was rubbish. I think he knows it's rubbish.
So in conclusion, you were right all along.
Oh yes.
Yeah, oh yes.
Yeah. No, I never doubted that. But I think,
of course.
But I never doubted that. But more so than just being right, it's that he knew that we were right all along, and the reason he threw all the toys out the cot was because he knew we were right. Because nobody who's made a film as ragged and rebellious and problematic and all over the place, in a good way, as Red State, could have made Cop Out and not know what a piece of trash it was.